Moving on, just months after making headlines for a first-of-its-kind low-cost chip, Chennai-based semiconductor startup Mindgrove has secured a Series A funding of $8 million. The round saw participation from rocket chip VC, Speciale Invest and Mela Ventures, while existing partners, Peak 15 Partners, Whiteboard Capital and Nishchay Goel have stayed on board. CNBC-TV18's Jude Sannith meets the founders to find out how they plan on using the money and what lies ahead. Here's a slice of that conversation.
The first meeting is usually formal, but then after that, most of the meetings are where we invite them in, we talk about a whole lot of things. We just had a wavelength. I mean, with our existing investors, they're very supportive and the wavelength is anyway there. But we just had a real click with the new people who are coming on board, which is Rocket Ship and Mela.
Right, all right. So what was the conversation like with both these new investors? What drew them in really?
What draws anybody into this field is the fact, I mean, it's hard, but then we are in a position where we've proven that we can actually execute at least the technology part of it. And that is drawing a lot of interest.
How do you plan to go about using these funds now? Where will they be deployed? I believe production is one area you're looking at, and also enhanced engineering as well. Take me through the broad roadmap of where these funds will be deployed.
Absolutely. So as Shashwat said, patience is power. And it took us about $2.3 million in seed funding to get out there and say, the pitch for the $2.3 million was we want to build a chip. And we did. Now the pitch for the $8 million was two broad things. The first is to bring the second chip to the point where the first chip is right now, which is pre-production, sampling with customers on the verge of going to production, full production.
And since you bring up production itself, and the aim and the objective is to go about helping that happen, what kind of timeline are we looking at to actually see production hit the floor and hit the market?
As things stand right now, we expect the first production batches, should the timelines stay as they are. And supply chain is a fun thing given the geopolitics of today. Right. We are expecting the first batch of production chips to arrive sometime in the middle of 2025, okay. July, August, September. Depends on how things, it's a cascade. So somebody has to give a purchase order, and then A, B, C, D, E. So everything goes well. That is the timeline we are looking at to bring out the first chips that will be deployed with customers.
But what does this mean, Shashwat, in terms of revenue itself? I'm sure your investors before coming on board would have been told in terms of what the growth prospects are like. What are they? Help us understand.
So I'm not going to quote specific revenue numbers because things are still up in the air a lot. Right. But if we actually get these two chips into production, in the kind of way that we're talking about, we have enough to actually very, very comfortably meet the valuation that we're raising at. I mean, whatever money our investors have put into it will come back to them.
Will be paid back plentiful.
Plentiful, right. Yeah.
What rate do you hope to grow? Has that number been arrived at least?
The easiest answer there is as fast as possible, because
it's the same thing the last time we spoke.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, as co-founders, what you want to do is rocket up, right? So having said that, dollar fluctuations play a very crucial role in the supply chain. So and we are in a phase worldwide where there's a lot of different things happening which are not necessarily in any trader's control, to use a very broad term for import and export. So those factors play well. The first chip is targeted at application use cases like biometric devices, consumer appliances, and so on. Those two examples that I gave you should make it pretty much easy for you to see the kind of market that is available just in India for those kinds of devices. Whereas the second chip is for effectively anything with a camera on it. So CCTVs, infotainment systems, access control system that use cameras, face detection, all of those kinds of things are what we are targeting.
Video door phones.
Video door phones are those kinds of things that we are targeting the second chip for. Again, if you look at the available market and the addressable market in India. And if you start estimating that you take a percentage of that market, you'd be able to see what kind of revenues we're talking about, and the numbers are big.
And even as you go about expanding, and on multiple fronts, and the second chip also comes into the equation, what's the timeline as far as future funding is concerned, Shashwat? Have you figured out how much you will need and by when?
The best course for us right now is that we don't need to raise for a little while. So we can use what we have and the revenues to grow out the business as a business. And we raise the next amount of funding that we need only when we need it to build a new product, or we need to unlock a different vertical, something like that. That would be the ideal case of the way we would like to operate.
And the normal course of action, of course, would be to go about expanding on that front. So I have to ask you then, what are the innovations can be expected from the Mindgrove stables?
Absolutely. So this is something I love to answer, but I have to be, unfortunately, as vague as he is. What we are doing right now is what we call technology capital. He calls it fundamental technology, but I call it technology capital. The thing here is we are building certain fundamental items with the idea to be as nimble as possible going forward. What we are trying to do, to use, as I like to very often do, is to give you a food analogy, is to build out all the ingredients and components of a thali, and then what exact thali that you assemble together depends on who comes to eat.
On that note, it is time for us